Good morning. Welcome to this online worship service with the Unitarian Universalist Church in Surprise, Arizona. I am the Reverend Terry Sims, and I have the joy and the privilege of serving UU Surprise as its minister. Due to the continuing danger of coronavirus infection, we are still not meeting in person in accordance with guidelines from the CDC and the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations. However, we are looking forward and making plans to meet again in person as soon as we can do so safely. Today, I am especially pleased to introduce our holiday dramatic reading of the story Hershel and the Hanukkah Goblins. This is a modern magical reimagining of the ancient story of Hanukkah, but it uses the same themes: the struggle for freedom from oppression, perseverance in the face of adversity, and the hope that light will overcome darkness. I want to thank the children in our church's religious education program for working so hard to bring this Hanukkah story to life for us. And I especially want to thank Lisa Lawrence, our wonderfully creative and energetic director of children's religious education. She found this story, imagined this service, created the dramatic reading script from the story, organized the children for this recorded reading and singing, made the costumes and the sets, led the rehearsals, worked with our music director, Debbie Bullens, to find the music, and mastered the technical challenges of the recording. Lisa and children of the RE department, thank you so much for this start to our winter holidays. And now, on with the show.
Die Nummer nennt sich Flying Bulgar und startet gleich wie jetzt vorher. Nur mit Schlagzeug. sehr, Flying Bulgar.
Hello, I'm going to be your narrator today. Our children will appear on screen as their characters come up in the story. I'll also be attempting a few sound effects to add some ambiance to our tale. Lastly, every now and again, we will take some breaks for music and worship. Let's begin. It was the first night of Hanukkah. Hershel of Ostropol was walking down the snow-covered road. He was tired, cold, and hungry. Nonetheless, his step was light. Soon he would reach the next village where bright candles, merry songs, and platters piled high with potato latkes awaited him. But when he arrived, the village was silent and dark. Not a single Hanukkah candle could be seen. Hershel approached a group of villagers who looked obviously distressed and asked,
"Isn't tonight the first night of Hanukkah?"
We don't have Hanukkah, Herschel. It's because of the goblins. For the past few years, they've gone to the old synagogue at the top of the hill. They forbid us to celebrate Hanukkah. Whenever we try to light a menorah, the goblins blow out the candles. When we play dreidel, they steal our tops mid-spin. When we sit down to dinner, they throw entire platters of potato latkes on the floor. Those wicked goblins make our lives miserable all year long, but on Hanukkah, it gets really bad.
Hershel was a brave man, and he knew he must somehow help. He approached the rabbi and said,
"I'm not afraid of goblins, Rabbi. Tell me how to get rid of them."
My dear Herschel, it won't be as easy as you think. You must spend all 8 nights in the old synagogue. Each of those nights, the Hanukkah candles must be lit and stay lit. Then on the 8th night, the terrifying king of goblins must light all 8 of the Hanukkah candles himself. This is the only way to break their power over Hanukkah and our village.
I'm not afraid, Rabbi, and if I can outwit a few goblins, then my name isn't Herschel of Ostropol.
The rabbi and villagers wished Hershel good luck. They had no potato latkes to give him, so they packed him several hard-boiled eggs for him to eat, along with 2 jars of pickles. The rabbi gave Hershel a brass menorah, a package of candles, and a box of matches. Then the villagers said goodbye. Nobody expected to ever see Hershel again. It was long past sundown by the time Hershel climbed to the top of the hill where the old synagogue stood. The crumbling building was gloomy and dark, and rusty hinges squealed as Hershel opened the door. Hershel shuddered. Well could he believe that goblins lived here. He put 2 candles in the menorah and set it on the windowsill. He struck a match and lit the shamus candle. He said the blessings and was about to light the other candle when Hershel heard a voice say,
"Hey, what are you doing?"
Hershel turned towards the voice. Here he saw 2 purple goblins, no bigger than horseflies, with long pointy tails and little bats' wings hovering in the air. He stopped what he was doing to address the tiny creatures.
"Well, hello. I'm lighting the Hanukkah candles. Tonight is the first night of Hanukkah."
"No, it's not. We don't allow Hanukkah around here."
"Well, is that so? Who's gonna stop me? 2 little pipsqueaks like you?"
Hey, who are you calling pipsqueak? We may be little, but we're super strong.
"Really? Can you crush a rock in your hands?"
Just you're joking. Nobody's that.
"Well, I am. Watch this."
Hershel took a hard-boiled egg from his pocket, and between his 2 hands, he squeezed it until the egg white and the yolk squeezed and ran through his fingers. Then, with a tough guy look on his face, he said,
"That's what I'm gonna do if you try to stop me from lighting these candles."
The little goblin's eyes opened wide. In the dim light, the egg had looked exactly like a rock. The goblins both shook in fear and began to plead with Hershel.
Hey, Papa, please leave us alone.
Yeah, please don't hurt us.
I'll gladly leave you alone if you let me light my candles in peace.
This one night won't matter. So you better not be here tomorrow. They're going way bigger than us. Lighting Hanukkah candles. You'll be sorry.
We'll just see about that.
The tiny goblins flew off in a hurry. Hershel wiped his hands clean. Then he picked up the shamus candle and used it to light the first candle. And now, Reverend Terry will light our chalice.
As I light the chalice here in our sanctuary, would you please join me in saying the words we use for that purpose? With its beauty and grace and strength, may this flaming chalice remind us of our highest aspirations, our deepest commitments, and our most earnest intentions.
On the second night, Hershel was just finishing his dinner of pickles and hard-boiled eggs when two more goblins appeared. These goblins were green and ugly, and they waddled like geese. Hershel had just the right plan to trick them.
Welcome. Come join me for some pickles.
Pickles?
Here, catch.
Hershel tossed them each a sour pickle to lure them in. Each goblin caught a pickle in their mouth, chewed it hastily, and then swallowed it.
Pickles are good. So yummy, give us more.
Do you like them? I have a jar for each of you. Here, take as many as you like.
Hershel handed each of the goblins a jar of pickles. The hungry, greedy goblins plunged their hands into the jar and grabbed as many pickles as their claws could hold. Then, when they tried to pull their fists out of the jar, they couldn't. The goblins began to panic.
Let us go. I can't get these pickles into my mouth. We're stuck. You put a spell on this jar to capture us.
Ha ha, that's right. And it's a very powerful spell too. You came over night to try to stop me from lighting Hanukkah candles. So now, I'm going to light them while you stand here and watch with your hands trapped. How do you like that?
No, we don't like it at all. We don't like Hanukkah.
Too bad. You have to get used to it.
Hershel said the blessings and lit the candles very slowly. Then he sang all of his favorite Hanukkah songs. And now we're going to sing one of ours.
Hanukkah, Hanukkah, come light the menorah. Let's have a party, all dance a hora. Around the table, giving you a treat. And we go to play with Hanukkah too.
The goblins continued to wail and carry on so much that Herschel finally decided to let them go.
Shall I tell you how to break the spell?
Yes, we can't stand it anymore.
Let go of the pickles. Your greed is the only spell holding you prisoner.
The goblins let go of the pickles. Their hands easily slipped out of the jars. Oh, how those goblins raged. They had each stood with their hand in a pickle jar while Herschel lit Hanukkah candles right under their big, ugly noses. The furious goblins stomped their feet so hard that they shattered into a million pieces. And then the wind blew them away. When the third night came, Herschel felt something watching him as he set the candles in the menorah. Instead of lighting them, he began playing with his dreidel. After a while, Herschel looked up, and from across the room, watching him, was another goblin. Just one this time. This one had a fiery red face and two enormous horns.
Getting late. When are you going to light those candles?
Later. There's still plenty of time, and dreidel is more fun.
That what you're playing? It looks like a top.
Don't tell me you've never played dreidel before. You can make lots of money if you know how to play. Come join me. I'll show you how.
The goblin quickly took a seat at Herschel's table. All goblins like money, and this one was no exception.
How do you play? I must know.
It's very simple, but you must have gold. That's the first rule.
I have plenty. Is this enough?
The goblin produced piles of gold coins out of thin air and poured them onto the table.
That'll do just fine. Listen carefully now. This letter is shin. If it comes up, you give me a handful of gold. This letter is hay. If it comes up, you give me half your gold. And lastly, gimel. If the dreidel falls on this letter, you give me all your gold. Understand?
Wait, there's one letter left. What about this one?
That's none. If the dreidel falls on none, I don't give you anything. Ready? Let's play. You go first.
The goblin spun the dreidel. The little top whirled round and round, and when it finally toppled over on its side, the letter shin was on top. Herschel smiled and grabbed a big handful of the goblin's gold.
Ooh, that's too bad. Why don't you try again? Maybe you'll have better luck.
The goblin spun the dreidel once more. This time it landed on hay.
This really isn't your night. Half of what you have left belongs to me. Why don't you give it another try? Your luck is bound to improve.
This time the dreidel landed on gimel. Herschel sighed with satisfaction as he reached out for what was left of the goblin's gold.
That's too bad. Would you like for me to spin?
Yes, I'm very unhappy about losing my money. I want my gold back.
After the goblin finished grumbling, Herschel spun the dreidel. This time the letter none was on top. Herschel began to laugh.
Oh my, I don't give you anything. I get to keep all the gold. That was fun. Get some more gold and we'll play again.
What about the Hanukkah candles?
No, we'll light them later. There's still plenty of time.
Not for me. I'm leaving now. I don't like this game. I don't like Hanukkah, and I don't like you.
Please, don't go. I know lots of games. Please, stay a while. We'll have fun.
No thanks.
And at that, the goblin spread his wings, swooped out the door, and flew off into the night. Hershel lit the candles all by himself. And now for a special musical break. So, on the following night, other goblins came. One had 6 heads, one had 3 eyes. All were terrible and fierce. They growled and roared and changed themselves into horrible shapes. They tried to stop Hershel from lighting the Hanukkah candles, but Hershel fooled them all. Finally, the 7th night arrived. 8 tiny candles flickered on the windowsill. Hershel sat back to enjoy their light. Where were the goblins? Had they finally given up? Hershel felt very sleepy. His eyes closed, and suddenly he sat up. He heard a terrible sound, a voice that sounded like the cracking of bones.
Happy Hanukkah, Hershel of Ostropol.
Who is it? Who's there?
Don't you know who I am, Hershel? Weren't you expecting? The king of the goblins?
The voice rose to a hurricane roar. It ripped the shingles from the synagogue roof and shattered the windows. The Hanukkah candles reeled in the savage blast, but they did not go out. Hershel shrieked through the wind.
You're too early. You're not supposed to come until tomorrow.
The great wind began to die down. The king of the goblins' voice echoed throughout the old synagogue.
Don't worry, Hershel. I am still far away, but I have the power to see and speak to you. Enjoy this Hanukkah evening, my friend. It will be your last. Tomorrow night I will come for you. You fooled the other goblins. Let's see if you can fool me.
And then the room became quiet and all was still. Poor Hershel. What was he to do? The king of the goblins was on his way, and no power on earth could stop him. Unless Hershel suddenly had an idea. It was a big chance, but he had to take it. It was the only way to save himself and Hanukkah. It was the last night of Hanukkah. Hershel set the candles in the menorah, but instead of placing it on the windowsill, he put the menorah and the box of matches on a small table near the door. Then he sat down to wait. Night fell. It grew as stark as pitch inside the gloomy old synagogue. Outside, the whole world lay cold and silent. And suddenly, a great gust of wind ripped the synagogue door from its hinges. The whole building shook. And a fearsome voice spoke.
Hershel of Ostropol.
Did I hear something?
It is I, the king of the goblins.
Ha! Oh, please, don't be silly. You're one of the boys from my village. Don't you scare me.
I am not a boy. I am the king of the goblins.
I'll believe it when I see it. Show yourself to me.
Behold, I stand before you. Do you believe me now?
Hershel tried not to look. Even in the darkness, he could see the outline of a monstrous shape filling the doorway, a figure too horrible to describe, but Hershel pretended not to care.
It's still too dark. I can't see anything. A candlestick and some matches are by the doorway. Why don't you light a few candles, then I'll see what you really are.
Indeed you shall.
A match flared. The shamus candle caught the flame, and Hershel's blood turned to water at the awful sight before him. Then, at the thought of losing courage, he started to silently pray.
Master of the world, thou who created the heavens and the earth and the spirits of the air, stand by me now.
And then he addressed the goblin once more.
It's still too dark. What are you afraid of? There are plenty of candles. Why not light them all?
A hideous hand took the shamus and lit the others one by one. Hershel felt himself growing faint, but he forced himself to look. His eyes grew wider as each candle caught the flame. 6, 7, 8. The king of the goblins stood before him.
Now, Hershel, do you know who I am?
I know you're not Queen Esther.
Very funny. Enjoy the joke. It will be your last.
That's what you think. Be gone, or I'll take stick at you.
How dare you speak to the king of the goblins in that way?
I'll speak to you any way I please. You have no power. Your spell is broken. See, the menorah is lit. You thought all those candles were ordinary candles you were lighting. They weren't. They were Hanukkah candles, and you lit them all by yourself.
The king of the goblins roared with fury.
Ah!
The earth trembled with a mighty wind. It ripped off the synagogue roof and blew down the walls. It splintered the great timbers and scattered them like matchsticks. Around the menorah, the whirlwind howled, but the candles never flickered. They burned with clear, steady flames. The king of the goblins had no power over them. The spirit of Hanukkah had triumphed. The great wind vanished as suddenly as it had arisen. Hershel rubbed his eyes. The night was as still as before, even though the synagogue was gone. Walls, floor, roof, even the foundation stones had vanished, but the menorah remained, standing tall upon the little table where Hershel had placed it. Hershel waited until the last candle blew out. Then he started down the road that led to the village.
I'd better hurry. I don't want to miss out on the last night of Hanukkah.
But there was no reason to worry. In every window there stood a menorah with 9 gleaming candles to light the way. The whole village was waiting for him. The end. And now I would like to invite the entire cast back on camera one more time so that we can all wish you a happy Hanukkah and happy holidays.
Happy Hanukkah!
Happy Hanukkah! Happy holidays!
Happy Hanukkah!
With Herschel of Ostropol, may we face the demons that haunt and oppress us. Like him, may we find the courage to overcome our fears and stand up to the forces of injustice with creativity and persistence. And may we light our own candles to rescue the world and ourselves from darkness. With purpose, may we go into the world again to celebrate a very happy Hanukkah.